On today's Live Daily News, a San Angelo man was brutally stabbed last night. We'll have the latest. San Angelo police arrested a man for assault and a drug possession charge. And a crash this afternoon slows traffic on Beauregard. We'll have details. I'm Yantis Green, and this is Live. We'll get to the news in a minute, but first, business in 2024 requires a reliable, fast internet connection. And when San Angelo Live launched this live stream video content, we found Conterra Networks. We are connected to the internet via Conterra's 1 gig up and 1 gig down fiber internet. Conterra Networks provides access to a business-oriented network. We require Sirius Internet to broadcast live on 5 major platforms like YouTube and Facebook. If you're in business, you're serious like us. Call Todd Smith at Conterra Networks to get serious about your internet at 325-716-8340. That's Todd Smith, 325-716-8340. In news, San Angelo police are reporting a man was left with serious stab wounds after an altercation at a Stripes convenience store on South Bryant Boulevard last night. According to police today, a 31-year-old man was found seriously injured from what appeared to be stab wounds in the parking lot of the store. He was transported to Shannon downtown, where he is reported in stable conditions. No arrests have been made. Read more on that story at sanangelolive.com. And Tom Green County Sheriff's deputies arrested 37-year-old Sergio Antonio Davila Avalos for going off bond for family violence and possession of methamphetamine and an immigration hold. He was booked into the Tom Green County Jail Wednesday afternoon and is being held until he can be transferred to custody of the immigration and ICE agents. Also, a 2-car crash involving a distracted driver Thursday afternoon. According to our reporters on the scene, a Lincoln passenger car was stopped in a line of traffic in the roadway on Beauregard, and a Chevy crashed into the back of it. The driver of the Lincoln was treated at the scene for minor injuries. The driver of that Chevy was issued a citation for failure to control speed. For more in-depth information, read that story on sanangelolive.com before other local news agencies copy our news again. Turning to weather, it'll be a bit clear and cool for the next few days, the last days of 2023. Look for overnight temperatures to drop to the upper 20s, with afternoon highs up near 60 degrees each day under clear skies. And stay with us. We'll have an interview followed by sports. First, we'll have this message from the Bass Bunch.
You're in the 23 Ford F-150 XLT. This truck offers so much, like blind spot sensors, accent step bars, and the XLT Appearance Package wheels give it a polished look. And the price is hard to beat at $12,000 in total savings.
Only at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart at Arden Road, or 24/7 at jimbassford.com.
Yep, $12,000 in total savings.
If you have been injured, call J. Chandler Law. You want an honest partner who will tell it to you straight. A proven advocate right here in town. Together, let's hold them accountable.
Well, welcome back. I'm Joe Hyde with San Angelo Live. One of the unique things about San Angelo is we have a public park that's owned by the city of San Angelo that used to be an old frontier fort called Fort Concho. Now, Fort Concho was established post-Civil War, and it housed, there was a line of forts that they had even pre-Civil War, but Fort Concho came after the Civil War, primarily for frontier defense, to defend the lands for the settlers against the Indians who were attacking us back in those days. That was the Indian Wars. But anyways, it's probably been a national monument, has been a national monument for longer than it has been a fort. And managing that fort today is Mr. Bob Bluthart. Welcome to our show.
Well, thank you.
Did I give a good, like if someone was coming in, listening from, like, let's say Jasper, Texas, would they understand what Fort Concho is now?
I think you gave a B+ to an A-.
B plus to A minus. Well, the fort is a big part of the city attractions. It's obviously a tourist mecca. You also have a museum there.
We have several buildings, actually almost a dozen, in which there are displays. But you're right, it really is not a museum per se. It's a historic site within which there is a museum component.
So there's a lot of stuff to look at.
There's a lot of stuff to
And a
look
lot
at.
of history to look at.
A lot of history, a lot of time. In fact, we always say you need to take about an hour and a half during a regular day if we're not doing a special event, if you want to see the whole place, because it covers 42 acres.
All right, so one of the things that I know, because I'm in the news business, I ask questions, is your budget's about $1.2 million a year.
1.15, that's correct.
Okay. And you are charged with raising, I guess, 10% of that through.
Well, it's kind of complicated, but let's make it simple. The budget is around 1.1 to 1.2 million.
Okay.
That's operational. That's 14 staff, 42 acres, collections, special events, the library, the archives, a mule or two, the whole shebang. Now,
What about the cannons?
they're in there too.
Okay.
all good stuff. Now, where does that money come from? Approximately 38% comes from the city, and that's
So a little bit over a third.
about a third,
Right.
about a third, and that's both the city's allocation to us each year and the hotel occupancy tax. We get a small amount, about $50,000 per year.
And
So-
for those who don't know what HOT is, or hotel occupancy tax, that's the tax that people who travel here pay on their hotel rooms.
That's correct, and it is managed through a series of laws passed by the state, and can only go to 8 statutory approved.
So you can't
issues.
build new streets
No.
or anything like that with that HOT money. It has
No.
to go toward tourism.
Things which basically bring more guests to your city to stay in more rooms and pay more tax. So
Right.
it's kind of a revolving thing. So that's the first third. The other 2/3 are our problem, and that is divided into about 17 different
When you say
revenue
it's our
streams.
problem, it's the staff of the fort has to raise
Staff,
the
the
money.
volunteers, and the 2 boards.
So you have some business operations in there.
We do. We rent buildings for parties and events. We have a gift shop. We have a modest admission. We have the Christmas event we were talking about before we went on the air. We have general donations, general sponsorships throughout the year, and property rental of non-historic property rental. So when you add all
But it's
that up,
non-historic property rental.
well, the 2 state office buildings that are adjacent to the
So
fort.
you get that money too.
No, not all of it.
Okay.
That's a separate budget.
Okay.
But a piece of that goes to the fort because the fort budget bought those buildings originally 30 years ago before they were rehabbed into space for state offices. So it's a little complicated, but the good news is you want to have a balanced budget. You want a budget where you're not dependent on any one revenue source. Like farming, if you're raising 5 or 6
more than
crops and
just-
one goes down,
Yeah, it's more. It's a diversified.
There's the word.
Diversified,
There's
not
the word.
balanced budget.
There we go.
Obviously,
There's the
you want
word.
a balanced budget, but you want a diversified income stream.
You want your income to come from various sources so that if you have, for instance, let's say Christmas again. It's the one thing we do, everybody knows us for. We've had some bad years.
So this is Christmas at Old Fort Concho.
The annual event, the first weekend of December.
3 days of
10 to 15,000 visitors, 750 volunteers, and more fun than humans should have.
and it
it's
has the this is where they have the pancake
breakfast with the Lions Club, all the cannons and the soldiers on the parade ground, the kids' gingerbread contest, all the merchants in the buildings. We just finished a very good one, but if the weather is not good or something bad happens, we hurt.
I remember 2015. It was freezing out there, and I got an urgent message from the marketing guy. I said, "Hey, we need some help.
Well,
Find some people who want to freeze."
we appreciate that, but unfortunately the weather, while it's the key factor, it's not something we control. Point is, if we have a less than robust Christmas event, we need to rely upon the other funding streams to help us out. So it's been a good project over the years where if we have a bad year on Christmas, we push a little harder on other things, trim the sails a little bit. We've had a balanced budget 14 of the last 15 years.
So what's the trend right now? Is the trend to have more government? I noticed that the mayor is very keen on enhancing things that make the city look good. So she'll throw lots of money in the budget to Fort Concho to do new buildings, renovations?
Well,
and things
there
like that?
again, it's a split. The buildings that are being reconstructed right now, Barracks 3 and 4 and the mess halls, that's entirely 100% private money. Those were 2 grants and 2 private donations totaling $3.5 million.
wow.
So no city money was involved there. Now, to operate those, we're going to have to look
Well,
at
she
our
wanted
budget.
to. I remember one year she wanted to paint the fences and all that. A bunch of maintenance.
Well, again, that was capital money, which came from a variety of sources, including the hotel occupancy tax and some surplus funds, but that was a one-time only, and some insurance money we got after the great storms of 2020. Remember that year when we had one tornado and bad storm after another? All of that combined put us in the best physical shape we have ever been. So for that, we're very grateful. Of course,
Insurance.
well, that's what you pay the premiums for. We pay something like $60,000 a year for our insurance, and it's there because someday you may need it.
Well, the point. What's the trend right now? Is the city subsidizing more and more of the Ford, or is it going down?
As a percentage of our income, it's been flat to declining for the last 30 years, but that's okay because we have picked up the other areas as needed. When I hired on 40 years ago, the Fort budget was 50% city and 50% private. Now it's more like 1/3, 2/3. I don't think the city ever will have...
1/3, when you say one, it's 1/3
1/3 the
government.
city and 2/3 us. I don't think the city, for its size, could afford to fund the whole thing, nor do we expect it to. We expect the city to be a partner with us and to take care of the things that it does best, and we take care of the things that we do best. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we've had balanced budgets 14 of the last 15 years. So I think the present is good and the future is even better.
All right, so this is the end of 2023.
It is.
It was a pretty good year for the Ford, I'd take it, because you've made lots of money with Christmas at Old Fort Concho.
We're still paying bills, much like those parties when you say, 2 months later, who bought this stuff?
Which those kinds of, the fundraisers and stuff is roughly about 10% of your budget, I guess?
That is correct.
Okay, and so you're a little bit over what you budgeted.
At the moment, we're about right on budget.
All right, so the best thing that happened to the Fort this year, what is the best thing that happened?
This in 2023?
In 2023.
We had lots of good things happening.
Well, let's not do it that way. No. Let's not do the best first. Let's do like the third from best, and then the second from best. And
was this like a Letterman top 10 list? Okay.
We need a top 3 list.
A top 3 list. Well, there are so many good things that happened. I think the things that come to mind, and I'm not necessarily ranking them in order. The reconstruction of barracks and mess halls 3 and 4 finally got moving forward.
The $3.5 million project.
That's the $3.5 million. That's going to be our new library, archives, and research center, and that's going to put us on the map in terms of folks wanting to do research and saving our history.
And also put heads in beds because they have to stay at a hotel to
if
come
they
research.
That's right. If they come to visit us and see these things, they have to stay someplace and eat someplace.
Give me an idea what's in what would be in the library.
15 to 20,000 books, reams and reams of files and resources, and the entire clipping file and archives of the San Angelo Standard Times. Your good friends there on West Harris. All of those resources, which date back 100 years, the DNA of our community, we are saving them, and we will make them available to the public.
So you can go back and look at the old paper from 1899.
Well, that's on microfilm, but before there was a Google, before you could search something like that, up until, say, the mid to late 1990s, if you wanted to do research, you just went to the clippings file. And every day, up until the 90s, somebody took the newspaper and chopped it up and filed it.
Really?
So let's say that it's 1970, let's pick a date. And you're a new writer for the Standard Times, and someone says to you, Joe, go write an article on some of the best barbecue joints in San Angelo. Well, you're from Illinois. You don't know a barbecue place from a hole in the wall. You went to the clippings file, went under barbecue and restaurants. You got 2 or 3 big file folders about this thick,
right?
And you did your research that way because somebody clipped out every story on every barbecue place for the last 50 years. That was the DNA.
How the heck do you find that?
Well, it's all alphabetical.
Oh, so you just look under B's?
You're in there. I bet you're in. I know I am. One article when I first moved here in 1982.
I've been banned from the pages of the Standard
I didn't
Times.
say it was good or bad. I just said you were in there.
I'm not in there.
Yes, you are. I'll prove
Well,
it
they
to
might
you.
have called me a blogger once.
Tell you what I'll do. When I come
Actually,
when I come on a show in the future,
You're gonna find-
I'll bring your file.
All right, bring my file.
I'll bring your file.
There's a file
I
of
sound
me.
like J. Edgar Hoover here.
Yeah.
I'll bring your file.
Over there at Fort Concho, they're doing lots of research.
That's our job.
All right, so the 2 buildings, $3.5 million project. What's another good thing that happened?
I think our exhibits took a great leap forward, as Mao would say. The Comanche and the Buffalo Soldier exhibits, we did one huge Buffalo Soldier exhibit out at ASU that played for the summer. Probably one of the finest Buffalo Soldier exhibits done anywhere in the country.
That was at the Mayer Museum.
That was at the Mayer Museum. And then we downsized it, packed it up, brought it over to the fort, and put it back in Barracks 1 along with a new exhibit on the Comanches. And they're just fabulous. And the visitor center at Barracks 1 is always free. So anybody, any day we're open, anytime can come in to see them.
Okay. Number 3. Or number 1.
Number one.
Wait, we need music. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah.
Well,
you don't have a number 1.
Because they're all number ones to me. They're all my children.
Stop it. You're starting to sound. Oh, never mind.
I think we had. Let me pick on Halloween.
Okay.
Several staff did an outstanding job this past year on our Halloween events, and they were all sellouts. We made some money.
And this was kind of like a haunted house kind of
thing. We did it all. We had for the academics, we had the walking tours that had real history. For those who like to get the bejesus stared out of them, we had the haunted house, and then we had the murder mystery in the middle. So we covered all the bases, high, low, and middle.
So you kind of added another event.
We did. We did.
Another.
Which is not easy when you have limited staff. There are only 14 of us, and there's just so many hours in the day. But I'm very proud of the staff. They did an outstanding job, and all of these events, and maybe a few more, will be coming back.
Looking forward into 2024, you have, I guess, the big stuff doesn't really start until April, but you have some things you're going to take January off pretty much.
We clean up and just kind of rest our
no cannons firing in January.
No cannons in January.
But in February,
Buffalo Soldier Month, we'll be doing several events, including a major event on the 25th. March, we have Ladies Living History Month. We will have a Garrison Days, which is a recreation of soldiers when they lived at the fort. April, of course, Polo in partnership with the Symphony. We will
wait, you have to say it right. It's Polo.
Polo.
It's a polo.
Is it a game or a shirt? I can never figure it out. Polo.
Yeah, it might be a shirt.
Horses whacking these wooden balls all over the place. And
it's pretty unique that you've torn down that school that was in the fairgrounds or in the parade grounds.
So that would make, that's correct. That would be, as we say, a water hazard and a half.
So we're going back a long time ago, but there used to be a school.
One of the original, okay, you're the history guy. Can you name the 4 original ward schools of the city of San Angelo?
Reagan?
Bingo, one still there, Volney and 14th.
Santa Rita?
Nope, that was the 1920s.
Dang. Austin?
Nope, that was the 1920s.
I don't even know where these schools are.
Well, there's
Fort Concho.
Fort Concho was one of the 4. You got 2. That was on the middle,
4.
One in the middle of the parade ground. Reagan, which was Volney and 14th, for San Jacinto, which is the 800 block of Spalding, and Lamar, which was on the west side on West Beauregard. Those were the 4 original ward schools created when the ISD was created in the early 1900s.
And your taxes went up that day.
I wasn't around then. I can't tell you. I'm sure they did. It was not cheap.
But that's interesting that what was the education system before then? Because
it was a hodgepodge. It was a combination of some area schools and private schools and things. In fact, even the fort's chapel, which was also used for education during the Army times, was used as a neighborhood school. The creation of the ISD professionalized the whole system. In fact, they didn't call them those names I mentioned earlier. They were cleverly named North, South, East, and West, and then later they gave them the names.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So 2 of the 4 are still around.
So we got Reagan
and San Jacinto.
And
Lamar on the west side, and Fort Concho and the parade ground are gone.
Wow. So Fort Concho was on the parade ground, but they still have Fort Concho Elementary behind the fort.
Well, the fort was surrounding it. They put it right where the flagpole is today.
So I wonder
which made polo very difficult.
Yeah, we were talking about polo. We got off from this ISD thing. This is interesting. So this whole ISD, when did they tear down the building? I mean, think
1988.
1988.
Because we built in partnership with the school district and the city and several foundations and private donors. My predecessor, John Vaughn, many remember him. It was his idea and others to create a new elementary school to the rear of the fort and thus allow us to take down the old elementary school.
To make it more like 1875.
Well, it's kind of hard to have a cavalry charge in the middle of your parade ground if you go to school there.
I wonder what got into the city leaders back then to build a school in the middle of the parade grounds of Fort Concho. Fort Concho must have been viewed as like wasteland.
In 1907, it was a whole different world. The fort was not a fort. It was just a bunch of old buildings, and people were living in them. It had no more historical significance, say, than something from Desert Storm today. I mean, it was too close to the modern age. I mean, all the officers' quarters had families. The barracks had warehouses or businesses. At headquarters was a rooming house. So there was no one standing around saying, gee, we should save this old fort. That would come 20, 30 years later.
Wow. So the fort pretty much was being used as
swallowed whole by the city when it jumped the river. And it was good quality housing, too, because it was all made out of limestone. That's the reason, one of the two main reasons it's still here today. It was built right.
Right. Right. So when they took it over 20, 30 years ago, they got this school built in the parade grounds, or they started saying, hey, we need to restore this. And when was it named like a historical or national monument?
The National Historic Landmark designation came in 1961.
Okay.
So that's been around a while, and that makes us rather special because there are hundreds of thousands of historic sites in the country. Only 2,700 are NHLs, and we're one of them.
Gotcha.
That's pretty special.
All right, back to polo.
Back to polo, of which I know nothing about. That'll be in April.
That's a bunch of rich people sitting around watching horses and dudes with like mallets.
It's exciting stuff, though. And
how many people go to that? About 400?
Oh, several hundred. I didn't really count the crowd, but it's a partnership with the Symphony and their guild, and they help us resaw it and bring the parade field back to a nice green tinge.
Does it tear up the parade field very bad?
Not that badly, no. No, that's a tough parade ground. It's
we had a school on it.
Well, it's recovered from a lot worse. So we're hoping this year it's going to be less dusty because last year the Symphony did a great job with their volunteers and seeding it and getting it watered and so forth, and then the drought hit thereafter. But right now it's looking really good. It's as green as the walls surrounding us here, or at least one of them anyway.
Don't say anything about the green screens around here.
Okay.
They'll say we're fake.
Oh.
We don't want to do that. And by the way, that really is a city. That's a window back there. See the window?
I do.
Yeah, just like on Late Night with David Letterman or whatever. You know, his windows when he throws. I can throw.
Of course, he hasn't been on in 20 years, but
yeah, people don't even know who that is anymore.
We're showing our age, Joe.
Anyway, that's the first quarter, and then you're looking forward to the summers. It's going to be hot. You have to go in there and do research.
We limit some of the outside stuff during the summer. We do have the Western Art Show coming in, the American Plains Artist Show. That'll start in late June and run through July and August. That'll be inside the air-conditioned Quartermaster. In the fall, of course, we have the Archaeology Fair. We have the Speaker Series again. All the Halloween fun stuff in October, and then my goodness, the year is gone, and it's time for Christmas at Old Fort Concho again.
Yes, Christmas, and that's kind of like your signature event.
There are people across the country who know us for this event.
Right.
I mean, I've told this story several times, and if your listeners have heard this before, my apologies, but my wife and I were visiting a frontier fort in the Dakotas, and we walked in, and it was a really slow day, and the guide wanted to give me the full tour, and I said, no. I says, I'm in the business. I want the behind the scenes. And so we started talking. He says, where are you from? And I says, I'm the director at Fort Concho in San Angelo. And without missing a beat, he said, I like your Christmas event.
Wow.
I'm in the middle of the Dakotas, 1,000 miles from home, and here's somebody who knows about the Christmas event. So it's our brand. You know about brands.
Yeah, brands are good.
Brands are good, and it's a good brand.
But Mr. Bob Luthart, you are a treasure to San Angelo.
You're don't bury me.
You're like a city landmark here that we get to talk to. And
I am surrounded by good people.
I learn something every time I talk to you. The ISD thing is just incredible. I mean, that's the coolest story.
It's responsible for the great educational system that we have in the city today, and all started over 117 years ago.
With 4 elementary schools.
4 cleverly named schools, north, south, east, and west.
All right. Well, that's for Bob Luthart at Fort Concho, and for San Angelo Live, Joe Hyde here, and we'll go back to the studio.
So we were on vacation, family vacation, having a good time, and we get the call.
I mean, it was a river. It was a river in our house. That's the big thing is we kept wondering, how bad is it?
It was devastating. I was like numb. It's like, how are we going to handle all this? What are we going to do? And they called Carpet Tech, and they were here within 20 minutes. One of my questions was, yes, it needs to happen, but how does it need to happen for the insurance? That was all handled, and so that was another load off of my shoulders and made me feel like we were in good hands.
With 2 weeks left in the NFL season, the Houston Texans find themselves in the number 8 spot in the AFC and on the outside looking in for a playoff berth. Last week, the Texans were blown out by the Cleveland Browns in a game where Houston had trouble putting points on the board. One major reason for this is that Houston lost its talented rookie quarterback, CJ Stroud, 2 weeks ago to a concussion suffered against the New York Jets. However, don't let the doom and gloom set in yet, Houston fans, as head coach DeMeco Ryans said at a press conference yesterday that Stroud has returned to practice. The 22-year-old quarterback participated in non-contact team drills on Wednesday and has progressed to stage 4 out of 5 in the NFL's concussion protocol. Stroud isn't totally in the clear yet, but Ryan said it was a clear and positive sign towards his recovery. The Texans will need Stroud soon as they currently sit in a 3-way tie for first place in the AFC South. Houston plays the Tennessee Titans at NRG Stadium in Houston on Sunday. And for more sports around the Concho Valley and beyond, be sure to check in every day at sanangelolive.com/news/sports.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Concho's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Concho's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Concho stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Concho's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
And thanks for watching the only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley. We really appreciate your feedback in letters to the editor, story ideas, and news tips on the website and on social media. Thanks again for making San Angelo Live the #1 news source in the Concho Valley. We look forward to bringing you all the news in 2024. We'll see you next time.